it's the best night of my life. I mean, when I think about it, it's the best it's the best thing that I've ever done in my entire life.
Well, it's good to be face-to-face with you, even though we're not actually, face-to-face right now.
As close as we can do quarantine person-to-person-ness that we can do right now, according to the CDC and the government. So we're being good boys by doing it this way.
We are. I mean, we are at least 6 feet away. We might be, 1,000 miles away, actually.
Yeah. You're a good plane ride away, which I probably wouldn't do right now as it is. So
yeah.
This is probably as close as we can get to one another.
Well, it's good to be able to do this. Appreciate you taking the time. How's everything going in your world?
It's quarantine-tastic. I mean, it's crazy how much the dog has gone walked more than ever in his life, and I'm sure he appreciates it, even though he seems like he's more tired than ever. But I need something. Like, I'm so bored. And then there's those dumb things. Like, I'm in my office right now, and I'm like, I'm supposed to be cleaning one of these closets in the office. I'm supposed to finish some taxes for this quarter. I haven't done any of that. And when I think about it, I'm like, I have all the time in the world now. I have no excuse, but I just don't want to. Quarantine life's got me doing nothing and enjoying it, I guess. I'm itching to get out, but I'm enjoying my time inside.
It's funny how when you're in this quarantine life right now, you do like one thing and you're like, look at all the stuff I accomplished today.
This interview right now, that's my day. I was like, Wednesday, I got this, and then I don't know, I'll find some little documentary to watch or something.
What are we drinking over there?
We're drinking the Shop and Stop brand. Oh, there it is, Shop and Stop brand seltzer water, because the Polar seltzer water was sold out. That and toilet paper is in high demand here in the Boston area.
Jeez. So if life was continuing on as normal, if we weren't in quarantine, if all this wasn't going on in the world, what were your bookings looking like over the last few weeks?
Well, I mean, obviously with Ring of Honor, I'd be heading to Tampa tomorrow, actually. I was just thinking about it. And, I had WrestleCon and then the Super Show and stuff like that. Supercard, and also I help out at Northeast Wrestling. I do a lot of stuff behind the scenes there. We had a show, Matt Hardy's Return, was canceled as well. So it's like a lot of stuff that this time of year, especially like a year ago, we were heading into Madison Square Garden. A lot of stuff that you're just expecting to be busy at this time of year. You're like, none of that's going to happen. What am I doing? So it's kind of crazy because you got to find new ways to do all sorts of things. Me, and Mike Bennett, we started the XWA Wrestling Kingdom in Rhode Island, and obviously we haven't been able to get in there with everything going on. It's been we shut down the school for obviously safety reasons, but now tonight we're going to have like a Skype class, which I'll have to try to figure out what to talk about for a couple hours via Skype to everyone. So it's just kind of things like that. You have to find ways to not only keep yourself not bored, but to keep yourself engaged with everyone else who's bored out of their minds at home. Like right now is a great time to put out content. At the same time, it's like, well, what do I talk about? Let me think of something that happened, years ago, and I'll talk about that. So it's definitely a strange time, and I'm trying to stay busy, much like yourself.
Well, I think you've keyed on something interesting there, because there is a lot more need for content right now, and certainly a lot more want for it. But there's a difference between just putting out content and putting out good content. And I appreciate that you're actually taking the time to go, what would people actually want to hear about?
Yeah, I mean, Ring of Honor is going to air the entirety of the Supercard show from last year. So in conjunction with that, I'm doing some things, doing like a little Players Tribune for the website, kind of talking about everything that led up to last year's Madison Square Garden show. And, obviously with so many options of things to watch, you got to like find something that's going to catch someone's eye. So, Ring of Honor is going to pump this up. Then we're going to do a couple things to tag along with it. And in the meantime, I'm like everyone else watching Tiger King and trying to figure out how I figure out a documentary about myself that everyone's going to sit on their couch and watch for the next week.
Man, I feel like everybody in the world has watched Tiger King. And if Netflix didn't have this planned out, like I feel like Netflix maybe was going to release this later in the year and they went, quarantine, let's get this thing out now.
They have some sort of masterminds out there at Netflix because they came out with that pandemic show like right before everything happened. So someone's on the inside there. And actually, we did a loop one time from Dallas and Austin, maybe up into Oklahoma City, and me, Jay Lethal, Dalton Castle, a couple others, we stopped at Joe Exotic's Tiger Zoo, because when you're driving through Texas, you see billboards everywhere of Joe Exotic on like lying across a tiger, and you're like, I have to go to this place. I have to go there. And since Jay is from the Tampa area, when he told them that he was from there, they started freaking out, thinking we were from Big Cat Rescue, as some sort of secret spies trying to take the place down. But after calming down the people at the front desk, they allowed us to roam the grounds, and it was a decent time. I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't the best time, wasn't the worst time. It was okay. 228 tigers on a billboard. You're gonna stop at that place, obviously. It didn't disappoint. I wasn't upset that we stopped there, but I wasn't also blown away at the same time.
The best part about this story is that they thought that Jay Lethal was employed by Carol Baskin.
Well, it didn't make sense to me, like why they were freaking out. And there's actually a podcast about the whole Joe Exotic thing. And when I heard the podcast, that's when it finally, made sense to me. And I like called Dalton. I was like, remember when they freaked out that Jay was from Tampa? I was like, that's because he tried to kill that chick. So it's definitely, we try to explore as much as humanly possible. And it's weird when you find yourself at places that now there's, everyone's obsessed about because there's a Netflix documentary about it.
Right. Well, you had mentioned Madison Square Garden. That's exactly a year ago now. That's obviously a big night for you. Would you say that was the biggest night of your career?
It's the best night of my life. I mean, when I think about it, it's the best it's the best thing that I've ever done in my entire life. I became a wrestling fan at 6 years old, watching WWF, watching Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Warrior, and it seemed like everything that was anything special happened at Madison Square Garden. And now here I am in Madison Square Garden alone, in the main event, in a ladder match, and then I find out, right before. And people don't believe me when I say this, but I found out hours before I walked out there that I was winning. And it's like, I still feel like it's a movie. Like when I watch it, it feels like I'm watching someone else live that experience, because I still look at it in my memories as like a movie, because all the lights and all like the hoopla around it. But yeah, man, it almost makes me like laugh like a madman when I think about it. Like I won the title at Madison Square Garden. What? So it's the best thing that has ever happened to me, professionally, personally. It's everything. So someone from Ring of Honor put things in perspective for a lot of us, and especially for me, because they said, is this might be tough right now, and we might be bored or down or worried about what the world is going to be like when this is all said and done. But if this happened a year ago, we would have missed out on Madison Square Garden. And like for me personally, to be selfish about it for a quick second, it's like, thank God that didn't happen then.
Right.
It took away the best moment of my life. So it's a crazy experience, and still, a year later, I still feel like, oh man, that happened. So it'll definitely be something that when I'm in a nursing home one day, I'll have bragging rights over whoever my roommate is at the time, and I'll tell him that he never won the title at Madison Square Garden.
I think people, fans often don't appreciate the fact that you will show up to the show not knowing the outcome of what's going on there. So when you were heading into, that was New York, who did you think was going to win that match?
I've talked about, it's such a polarizing thing, Madison Square Garden. And it's like, there's so many things that come to mind or that are talking points. And I truly am a believer that if you were a Ring of Honor fan that watched this product consistently, that saw what happened in Vegas, that saw what happened months before, basically since I returned from Mexico and declared myself the real Ring of Honor World Champion, it had to be me. But like, it's just, but that's me thinking also, as you know, as biased as I can be, that yeah, I should be the one to win at Madison Square Garden. But I'm also a wrestling nerd and a wrestling historian. I think that's what us wrestling marks call ourselves. But it's one of those things where I realize, like, a show like that, it could just the baby face because you want a feel good moment. But if you the storyline, it should go to me. Like, there's just it had so many things. It should have just stay on Jay to solidify him as the franchise of the company. I think there was, you know, everyone could have gone this, it could have gone that. But to me, after you watch me and Jay Lethal go 60 minutes in Vegas, there's only one. I'm dead if I don't go over at Madison Square Garden. I basically, you know what I mean? I prove everything. I'm the world champion. I go 60 minutes camp that I do. I live up to, and then all of a sudden I fail. I don't know where I go at that point. So for me personally, I think it was the right choice, and I would do it again.
There were probably points in your career, though, where you thought, man, I should have got the title 5 years ago or 6 years ago or something like that. This was probably just, you know, this was a long time coming for someone like you. Yeah,
I mean, I think, and I guess it goes to my confusion sometimes with my love-hate relationship with the internet, is that, like, I grew up as one of those fans that loved seeing those guys work their way up. Like, Bret Hart was a tag wrestler. Then he was the Intercontinental champ. Shawn Michaels, same thing. Then all of a sudden he's the world champ. He did it. He made it all the way to the top. I feel that, like, people feel that way, you know, with guys like Dolph Ziggler now. And it's like, you know, these guys that you've seen have worked all the way up, and Ziggler's been the world champion, but people still feel like, oh, come on, this is the guy that we've been behind forever. For me personally, I feel like that's a similar story with me. Is like, I was the television champ, I was the tag champ, I was the 6-man tag champ, and I progressed along the way. It's like, this is what, you know, a wrestler, for me, what I always thought like my wrestling destiny would be, to work my way up and to like work my way up the ladder like this. So there was definitely times where, you know, I thought it might happen when Dalton got hurt. I thought it might happen then. And it didn't. And honestly, you know, thank God it didn't, because then I got to win at Madison Square Garden. So suck on that, right? So it's like, it's one of those things where, you know, you think that maybe everything does happen for a reason. I've made so many mistakes. I've had so many setbacks. So many things have happened here and there. But when it comes down to it, in the end, I win the world title at Madison Square. I don't know if I would trade anything for that, right?
Right. And obviously your character has evolved a lot as well. Could you have seen your old character being the world champion?
I thought there was, like I said, I thought there was a chance when Dalton was the champion, but when it didn't happen, it made me really go, well, I've done this. I've been, you know, Matt Taven Hoopla. I've been Matt Taven with the Kingdom. I need to do something to change things. And it was, you know, one of the reasons why I wanted to do the hair match in Mexico. And when I came back, I had, you know, a different look, but it's just more of an attitude of like, I've main evented Arena Mexico. I've main evented Sumo Hall. I've been here for years. I've won everything here. If you don't believe in me, well, then go F yourself, because this is the guy. I'm the guy. Take it or leave it. And I had just that chip on my shoulder. And it was like, you know, like I said, everything, I guess, happens for a reason, because just the stars were aligned. And I could tell from that first night back, Will Ospreay, Jay Lethal, incredible match in Vegas. I show up and dump Jay with the new title belt, and I could just feel the reaction. I was like, I've done the right thing. Like, making the change right now was the right move. But also at the same time, like, I've seen my idols continuously change, and, you know, there's no better example than Chris Jericho. You know, He continues to do it now, and he always is coming back with something fresh and new. And I would be lying if I didn't say that he's one of the reasons why I've done a lot of things in my career, as far as especially traveling internationally. So that's always in the back of my mind is like, if they've seen it, then what makes it different now? You have to make it different. You have to change it up. You have to keep it fresh. And it was the thing that was on my mind that I thought would bring me to the world title.
I think that sounds scary though, because you've had, these other things, right?
Terrifying.
You got these other, gimmicks and characters that have worked. And for you to abandon that for the unknown, betting on yourself that it's going to work, man, that's a big leap.
I had long hair for over a decade, and I love long hair. I personally, all my favorite wrestlers had long hair. I grew my hair out because I thought you had to have long hair to be a wrestler. to get my head shaved in Mexico is a terrifying thing. Like, I don't know how I look with a shaved head. And it just like, will this change everything? If I come back with a new look and I really want to strip things down and just make it slightly similar, because it was still with the King, you know what I mean? Something new to show up and say like, here's me. And what if everyone goes, oh no, you're like, oh, please don't do that. Please don't do that. So it's a terrifying thing. And it gives me even more respect for guys that are able to continuously reinvent themselves, come back and stay fresh.
Well, now you're in great company in Ring of Honor, being a Grand Slam champion. It's you and Christopher Daniels.
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, that's pretty amazing to be mentioned in the same sentence as someone like Daniels.
Oh, without a doubt. And like just the Ring of Honor World Title alone, to look at the lineage of guys that have done that, and it's something that you really truly can't appreciate in the moment. I'm getting to kind of appreciate it now because a lot of the stuff I'm doing, I'm reliving past stuff. But if wrestling wasn't being affected like everyone else is with the coronavirus, we would be talking about current stuff. And you live in such a go time that you really don't have a lot of time to smell the roses in wrestling. I always joke that it's, here today, gone today, because the wrestling business turns like that. And I can even tell from like interactions on my social media since I've been hurt and not necessarily on TV as much lately. It's just a natural thing, kind of out of sight, out of mind, which I get. And the wrestling business, it does that more than any other business, I personally feel. So to put my name in the history books with guys like Christopher Daniels, but the Jay Lethals, the Dalton Castles, Adam Coles, Cody Rhodes, guys I've respected, and all the way down the line, the Samoa Joes that held that title for over a year. It's like, wow, my name is next on that list. It was definitely a proud moment. And then other things that I really didn't know, that I was like the only one to win a title in CMLL, New Japan, and Ring of Honor. It was like me, Rocky, and I think now Dragon Lee and Tama have been added to the list. But at first I was like, look at me, I've done it again. So it's there's been so many cool things to happen. And I'm just, as a wrestling historian, Mark, I'm just happy to really kind of cement my name in a lot of those different categories.
Well, so many of the people that you named, or a lot of people that you've wrestled against, have spent some time in Ring of Honor and then they've gone on, elsewhere to do something else. Why have you been so loyal to Ring of Honor? I mean, Matt Taven, Ring of Honor, they go hand in hand.
And there's so many different things. I've always been a fan of those guys that stick with one team forever. You know what I mean? The Larry Birds, like in my mind, Michael Jordan never played for the Wizards. That's just ridiculous. You know what I mean? Magic Johnson. It's just like those guys that are synonymous. They brand themselves basically with their team logo. And it's always been something that it's been on my mind. But there's been a million things that Ring of Honor that has been there for me time after time. I've made a million mistakes. I've done a million dumb things. And it seems like Ring of Honor is always kind of, instead of pushing me down, picked me up. And there was one thing in particular that happened when I got injured 4 years ago. I blew out my ACL at a time that was, if people knew what was going on backstage, it was just complete chaos because Mikey and Maria were going to TNA, or they were at least in the midst of their contract stuff. Like me and Cole, there was talks about us something else, and boom, I blow out my ACL. and my contract's about to expire. It's about to expire like Mike's is. And so Mike knows that he's going elsewhere. I thought I was staying, but now all of a sudden I'm hurt before my contract expires. And Ring of Honor comes to me and they say, you know what, we'll honor our deal the way it was until you're back. And we'll take care of things from there. And I was like, from a guy that, really killed himself on the indies, and you never know when that next paycheck's coming, when that next, the indies, you're lucky if you get a hot dog and a handshake after you wrestle. And for to be in a scary situation where you're like, I'm about to be a free agent and hurt. What am I to do? Like, how do I sell myself to people? People will just say, oh, well, tell us when you're healthy again. Well, yeah. I have to eat in the meantime. You know what I mean? From now, like, I get back in the ring, the bills still keep coming in. So for Ring of Honor to say, hey man, we want you to be here. We'll take care of you. You're part of our family. I never forgot that for a second, and I never will.
Well, you talk about guys that stay on the same team their whole career. You're a Boston guy, and that was Tom Brady for the longest time.
Oh, why? It's tough. There's a real sick part of me that is almost like happy that there's a chance the NFL season might get canceled. That's what you get. That's what you get, Tom. All right. You don't even get to play now. You left us. You cancel this whole season. Cancel it. But yeah, no, man, I don't know. Like, I'm still gonna wear my Brady jersey. Like, it's not like I'm still gonna think that Tom's the greatest of all time. It's just I grew up when the Patriots were terrible, and like when I started getting older, we started getting better. And like kids in this area, they have no idea when it was like what it was like to be like the bottom of the basement Patriots. And to think that life is coming back on Sundays is not exciting for me at all. So I'm very disappointed. But Tom, didn't you see what happened when Joe Montana left? When he went to Kansas City, it was just not that great. Why would you leave us, Tom?
Come on. Belichick is such a great coach that I feel like he's going to make whoever goes into that position fantastic in that role.
Oh, that's the thing is that, like, I'm not too concerned of what the future will be, and especially in the AFC East. But to see Tom Brady in another uniform, like my friends, jokingly send me like the new Bucks jersey. Like, are you gonna buy this? I'm like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. It just doesn't even look right looking at it. So it's been a tough off season here in the area, let alone coronavirus keeping us all indoors. Like half the Patriots team is left. So it's been a tough one.
It's a sore subject. I'm so sorry.
Very sore subject.
How have you been able to work out with the? Okay, I guess a lot of workouts. Are you worried about losing mass?
I'm worried about gaining mass is my problem. Okay. No, I mean, like I've been able to work out at home enough. I have through the years. You have so many bands and cables and weights and like machines that we have. Like I have in the house. It's just not the same as like your normal gym workout. So it just never feels the same. And like getting cardio in, you have to find different ways to do it. I'm not very much of an outdoor runner, especially after a couple of knee surgeries. I've made that a lot more difficult. So like for me to do cardio in the wild is a little different. I found like 4 floors of stairs to just run up and down for a half hour. And you have to find things like that. My biggest concern is right now being only a couple months out of knee surgery. And right after Final Battle, I had surgery on my ankle. I'd been going, to PT and rehabbing both those injuries. Right now, unfortunately, both the places that I was going to for my injuries are closed because of the coronavirus. So luckily, my doctors have been keeping up with me via email and stuff, and I've been able to do a lot of stuff at home. Unfortunately, there are things that just treatment stuff that I wouldn't be able to do unless I was there in the office. So I'm hoping that things can calm down more for my rehab more than anything. But man, working out at home is the worst. It's like you're in the middle of crunching away and you're like, do I really want to do 20 more crunches, or could I get up and watch my favorite TV show and like, go in the kitchen and distract myself by looking in the cabinets for a half? It's like you find any excuse not to work out when you're at home.
There's something about getting your shoes on, getting into your car, driving to the gym, and then going, all right, well, now I'm here. I might as well work out.
Yeah, of course. And like, I'm a firm believer that if you're getting dressed, I've been like able to do cameos and stuff like that for people that are saying, I have no motivation to work out or work at home. And I'm like, get dressed, get in your routine. But if you're getting dressed where you're putting jeans on, you're a serial killer. All right. We're doing all these meetings from the chest up. I have sweatpants on. I'm in a jersey right now anyway, but if I had jeans on, call the police, okay? No one should be in quarantine in uncomfortable wear. You should be in leisure wear, athletic wear while you're in quarantine, or you're the next psychopath, and we should probably never let you out of quarantine.
I appreciate that you're wearing pants at all.
I mean, I was actually thinking about it. I was like, but I'll do something dumb, and I'll get up halfway through the interview, and everyone will see like a some Speedos on or something ridiculous, cheetah print underwear on or something.
How are you feeling after the surgery? Like if everything were to keep going on with your rehab, when do you think we could see you back in the ring?
I mean, the thing was the ankle surgery was going really well. And then I had to have my knee done, and that kind of had a little bit of a fluctuating timeline with depending on how it was going to react to certain treatments. And now that I can't go in for treatment, it's a little bit up in the air. I mean, I'm hoping to be back ASAP, definitely before the end of the year. I've made the statement when I first went to surgery that I would be world champion again before end of 2020, and I plan on living up to that statement. So I'm just hoping that this quarantine thing can go by quicker, safely, but as quick as possible, so I can get back and so the doctors can clear me. Honestly, it's just so someone can look at me and bend my ankle in certain ways and said my knee won't swell up as much anymore, and they can send me on my way. But until this whole thing gets figured out, a doctor does want to they want to do this, but they can't really see, exactly how I'm going to react to certain situations. At the same time, we have the school, which is such a benefit for me to get back and roll around a little bit, but I haven't been in a wrestling ring at all since Final Battle. And again, with the coronavirus, it's one of those things where who knows when we're going to be able to safely get back in the ring. So my biggest thing is that I think 4 years ago when I came back from knee surgery, I came back probably too quickly, which is why I had this knee surgery just recently. So I don't want to be, I don't want to see any more doctors as long as humanly possible. So I'm going to try to take my time in rehab and make sure that when I come back, I'm good to go 100%.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I hope that you come back 100% and that you're better than ever. Now that's looking ahead. If we look back here, let's kind of like dial it back a little bit. Where did this all begin for you? Like, where did your love of pro wrestling begin for you?
Oh man, I can remember the story like it was like yesterday, and I'm sure my memory is not 100% accurate. It's a lot more beautiful in my mind, I'm sure. But my great uncle was staying with us, and my parents did not get professional wrestling. And until I was like deep into professional wrestling, did they start to kind of come around on it. But when I was a kid, they would always be like, "You really like that? You sure you like that?" They would bring me to the Boston Garden afterwards. They would say like, "We're returning on this date." And I'd be like, "We have to go." And they'd be like, "But are you sure you had a good time? Or you really like that?" So anyway, my great uncle comes to stay with us. He is, flipping through the TV guide or whatever, trying to find wrestling. And I can remember him telling me what channel to turn it to. And I don't know if it was like this, but in my mind, it was like I turned it on and it was that like the World Wrestling Federation. And it was the Ultimate Warrior with like lightning bolts striking behind him and all these colors and stuff. And coming from a kid that's watching, Thundercats and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles right before that, it's like all the superheroes that were cartoons now just came to life and were wrestlers. And so for me, I was hooked. Like I was obsessed with it. All through growing up, all through my childhood. But I think as we all grow up, and like I said, my parents were always like, "Oh yeah, you want to be a wrestler? That's great. Go get a job." Right. So like, I always wanted to be a pro wrestler my whole life, but my my parents were like, yeah, you're going to college and you're going to do what everyone else does. So went to school, graduated, actually started working for the New England Revolution and the Patriots. And one of my buddies that I grew up with, who I used to backyard wrestle with, and funny story, Todd Hansen, one of the Viking Raiders now, he used to backyard wrestle with us as well. We're all from the same hometown. But another guy that was in our backyard wrestling federation was doing independent stuff. I came by to see him, and I was like, this is it. Like, this is my calling. And it's literally, I kind of ran away and joined the circus ever since. I can remember calling like my dad outside in the parking lot at Gillette Stadium, thinking that he was going to tell me I was insane, but saying like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to walk in and quit right now and just take this wrestling thing on full steam. And he was like, go ahead, you're only young once. And I was like, well, that's not what I expected. So I'm going to go do this right now. And I haven't looked back.
Wow. What was your backyard wrestling name? Because I was a fellow backyard wrestler.
See, I had a bunch of different names. Then there was, it was huge Chris Jericho mark. So I remember like one of my characters was just a blatant rip off of Jericho, and it was like Y2M, the highlight or something. But I had a mass one that was like White Angel. I had like a corporate one that was like my real name, but like my all long version, no nicknames, like my middle name and stuff. It was man, we ran the gamut of different gimmicks and wrestlers, but at the same time, like it definitely got me ready. And I don't want to I'm almost gonna give this as like a backyard wrestling advertisement, but like it got me prepared for what I see now or what I deal with now as a wrestler, because I had to think for so many different characters in so many different ways that now it's like my brain just kind of works like that. Like it works like, oh, well, what would the heel do in this way? What would this character do this way? And, again, please be safe at home. Don't break all your parents' furniture like I did. But, man, it definitely led me down a track that I've followed for the rest of my life.
Did you basically just Google wrestling schools in your area and went, oh, Spike Dudley's here?
No, that was a long way around. So, like, in the New England, Boston area, everyone knows Killer Kowalski. Everyone knows that Kowalski School was the place to go. At the time that I was looking to get into it, Kowalski School had kind of changed, and it turned into the Chaotic School, which was north of the city, close to New Hampshire. At the time, I had gone to school in Providence and was working for the Patriots and Revolution, so I was living in Providence, which is like, New England's kind of separated from north and south of Boston. So anything like north of the city, if you try to get through it through rush hour traffic, like forget about it.
Right.
So I remember reaching out to Hansen, to Warbeard, and him telling me about the Chaotic School, and just like, trying to get there from like work and stuff like that, it just wouldn't have worked out. So I started kind of poking my head around these indies that weren't probably the best, and really kind of getting information and meeting people. And a guy that was the assistant trainer at Spike Dudley's school, Ryan Waters, saw me, brought me to Spike's, and it was just one of those things that kind of like, this is where I was supposed to be. Spike blew me away because I was a huge ECW fan, and ECW used to always come to, it was huge in New England. It used to come to New Hampshire and Boston. So you would see it a couple times every time they would make a loop up here. So I'm like, oh my God, Spike Dudley, this is going to be crazy. Little did I know that he's like the best technical wrestler that no one ever knows about. Like, no one realizes that his wrestling mind is just unbelievable. And so I had like a totally different learning experience. I don't know what I was expecting from Spike, but it was like mind blowing. I was like, oh my God, Spike Dudley's like the best wrestler of all time. How did I not know this? But also, I'm new and just have never seen a guy that was so versatile. And that's where I met Mike Bennett, Jimmy Preston, the Thrill Ride, Biff Busick, who's only Lorcan now, and Vinny. That's where we all met. And it's weird because even still to this day, there's a kinship with all the people that come out of that school, just because we know, like, we might not have been there when you were there, but we know the process and what it's like there. And there's a respect to it. Like, TK is a lot younger, or came in a lot after me and Vinny, but he fit in that group so well because he had come up in that system of Ryan Waters and Spike in the school. And when we met him for the first time, it was one of those weird situations where you're like, this is a guy that I feel like I've known my whole life, and like just instantly was like, all right, you're with us now, like, get in the car. So it's one of those places that still is a great school. It's still running, the Lockup Academy in Fall River, and it's a brotherhood that we formed out of there that has gone to our school, and it's weird how it's like branched out through all of wrestling. You know, you text your friends and, you know, Adam's here or Mike's here and this guy's over here. And it's like, it's just kind of crazy, you know, when we think about how we all started in this little spot and now we're all branched out all over the wrestling world.
It's amazing that you give Spike Dudley that much credit for his wrestling ability, because he's so good. But ECW did him no favors by replaying his highlights with Mike Awesome and, him getting thrown out of the ring or thrown through tables.
There, and that's like what I think of as like, oh, throw Spike into the crowd. But like, there's a match that we watched during training that I literally, and I suggest anyone curious about Spike Dudley's wrestling abilities, go and watch. It's on YouTube, Spike Dudley versus Rob Van Dam. And like, I'm a huge Rob Van Dam fan, but Spike Dudley looked like Rob Van Dam in this match. Spike's jumping up, doing all the Hurricane Ranas, doing all the crazy stuff. And I'm like, Spike is unbelievable. And I'm glad that I got to learn under a guy like that he doesn't think that, he thinks nothing of himself. But when you are under that learning tree, you're like, my God, this guy's unreal.
Rob Van Dam obviously has one of the best 5-star or one of the best frog splashes in wrestling, but your frog splash is very good. And who inspired you to make your frog splash as good as it is?
Well, I'm not going to lie, backyard wrestling wise, Rob Van Dam was a huge – I must have threw every object I could in someone's face hoping that they would catch it just so I could kick them as hard as humanly possible. So, like, obviously Rob Van Dam is where that started for me, like, on the trampoline. But as I got older and as my wrestling knowledge grew, I'm a giant Eddie Guerrero fan, and Art Barr as well. Like, just – watching, like, especially going down to Mexico and like watching Art Barr in Mexico and seeing the stuff that he would do down there and just the heat that they would generate down there. It's like, and then he'd bust out this beautiful frog splash. I was like, that's pretty good stuff right there. So I remember when I first started, I tried to do I wanted to do the frog splash, but I was like, I got to be different. So I tried to do like this thing where I'd grab my heels, almost like the old Kenny Dykstra, like leg drop there, and then do the that way. And Spike didn't think that looked impactful enough. And he's like, why don't you just do the frog splash? Like, why are you trying to change up a good thing? Just do the frog splash. I was like, all right, you're right. So, it stuck with me ever since. And it's one of those moves that, you can lie on the ground and someone can jump on top of you. You know how that feels. So no matter who sees it, where they see it, they can understand that impact of two human beings colliding like that.
After your first knee surgery, when you got up to do the frog splash for the first time, were you worried?
Absolutely terrified. My first match back from knee surgery is the craziest thing of all time. I'm a huge wrestling fan. Guys like Guerrero, Jericho have inspired me so much. You watch them go from place to place and learn their different skills from these different areas, and that's what makes them this whole, person. And I always felt like that's something that I wanted to do. I was a tag wrestler. Me and Mikey went to Japan. Now I got hurt, and I was like, I got offered Arena Mexico before I got hurt, and they came back and they were like, well, hey, we want to bring you down in September if you're willing to come back, from injury a month early. And so here I am. I have like this goal in my mind, and then someone throws Arena Mexico in my face, and I'm like, throw that out the window. I'm going to Mexico because I'm just one of those guys that I'm all for the adventure. And again, like I got to check that off the bucket list.
Yeah.
So next thing you know, I'm on a flight to Mexico. I speak now I speak better Spanish, but I speak very broken Spanish. I've never worked these guys before in my life. I haven't wrestled since knee surgery, and these guys are calling all these dives and all this stuff like that. And I'm like, well, if it's not going to work now, we're going to find out pretty quick.
Yeah.
I'm diving to the floor in Arena Mexico, and I can remember the first time I did like my big, Undertaker dive, and kind of landed on one foot and checked it out and was like, oh my God, I'm okay. I can do this. And that whole tour was such an adventure. I'm icing my leg every night because it's swelling up, but I can't find ice in this hotel. So I have to go to a local 7-Eleven where all they have is the big 5-pound like block of ice. So every night I'm lying on like a slab of ice, like I'm in the morgue or something. And it all built up to this one-on-one match between me and Roosh. And as I'm walking down the steps of Arena Mexico, the brace, one of the straps on my brace breaks off. So like I'm wrestling like my first singles match since being back with like a broken knee brace. What an adventure that tour was. And, like I said, I think I probably came back too early, which is why I have this knee surgery now. But would I change it? Absolutely not. Mexico, it was like a resurgence of my career and really kind of put me on the map. And like I said earlier, does Madison Square happen without Mexico? So, everything happens for a reason.
Well, that's where the new look came from. Is there anything about the long hair you miss?
Well, I don't miss getting called Pauly Shore.
You don't get called Pauly Shore.
Yeah, but I think that's racist because against people with curly hair. Not everyone with curly hair is necessarily Pauly Shore or Kenny G or Carrot Top. We're cursed with this curly hair. You don't have to just typecast us into the small group of people. And I love headbands, so whatever. Pauly Shore doesn't even have long hair anymore. Anyway, I miss long hair just because I love like throwing my hair around. But as a wrestler, and this is something that I always try to teach students or guys that ask for advice, like you're selling action. And, you're selling movement, you're selling all this. It's, some people might think it's smoke and mirrors, but we have to be the guy that's showing you the magic trick, that's distracting you while something else is happening. And having long hair is just another way to kind of have extra movement. You see someone get hit and their hair flies around, it just looks that much more impactful. So like I can remember when I first was back without the long hair, I'm whipping my head around like my hair is still gonna flow in the wind, and it was very upsetting. It was very upsetting the first time I couldn't do like the Prince Farquaad hair toss. It was like a grounding moment. But it's who knows? I could be back one day. Who knows? You never know.
It might be. Old hair, new attitude. Could be that.
Right? What's old could be new again.
If someone comes up to you and they're 18 years old and says, I want to do what you do, I want to be a pro wrestler, what's the first piece of advice that you tell them?
Well, I think everyone tells them to have a backup plan, which I think is a smart move. I personally wish that I probably started wrestling while I was in college. For example, like me and Mike Bennett are roughly the same age, but he had almost 9-10 years experience more than me because I didn't start till I was 23 and he started, when he was in the womb. So it's one of those things where I would suggest getting involved early, but at the same time, I would always have that backup plan, always, go to school, have an opportunity, because whether it doesn't work out or it does, if you're more valuable in different aspects of the wrestling business, that just makes you more valuable, period. So, and you can't bump forever. So like, if you can do something, a lot of our guys at the school can do video production. It seems like every kid these days is awesome at that. And I'm like, that's a great skill to have for wrestling.
Yeah.
But to always have that kind of something to fall back on because God forbid you get hurt, XYZ. But you have to go to a good school with a guy running it who's got some sort of name value, or at least has experience, has trained other people. I can't tell you how many people you see come to seminars, or you see come to visit the school, and they say they've been trained, and they say, "Oh, I got trained by this guy," and not that I know everyone, but maybe if I haven't heard of them, and then all of a sudden they're in there, and you're like, "Oh, we kind of have to start back at the basics," and that's fine for me, but I feel bad for that person that might have wasted all their time going to someone that other people might not have heard of. I always suggest, if there's a school that has a connection to a promotion, that's an easy, I was a student here, now I'm wrestling here. Yeah. And that's an easy way to get your foot in the door. We don't really have that problem too much in New England. There's almost too many good schools. There's Chaotic. There's the Lockup where I went to with Spike Dudley. There's my school in Rhode Island. So there's plenty of places to go. And plenty of guys with fantastic backgrounds and reps that will lead you in the right direction. So do your research. Travis Flip Gordon there. I can remember like day 2 of him being at Chaotic, and I was like, how did you end up here from Montana? And he's like, I Googled wrestling schools. Like, well, at least you did a good amount of research, because you ended up at the right one. So. Yeah. Do your research, and maybe you'll drive yourself across country like Crazy Boy Flip.
His story always blows me away.
It's awesome. I'm begging him to take me back to his hometown, because Montana's like one of the only states I haven't been to, and it's just beautiful. Can I see where Flip Gordon came from? Because like I said, I've known that kid since basically he started in wrestling, and man, sometimes he does or says things that just blow my mind. So I'm like, I have to see where you came from. Where
he told me he wants to buy a farm, and I'm like, what?
It makes perfect sense. Every time he's home, he sends me a picture of his backyard that has like a goat or like some sort of crazy wildlife just strolling through it.
I love the name of your signature moves. Climax, Just the Tip. Very amazing. Were there some that didn't make the cut, that were maybe a little too risque?
Yeah. See, I think it was always the best when it could like ride that line. And I can remember one, and I feel like I'm name dropping now, but like Tommaso Ciampa's wedding, he had this guy from the Arch Kincaid, who is a guy if people from New England, they know him from the local scene. And Arch Kincaid's just one of those characters that doesn't really care who's around. He's just going to detox loud. Everyone can hear him. So here's all of Tommaso's family. And Arch Kincaid wants to break down why I named my finishing move the Climax and how great it is. And I'm like, can we just pump it down a little bit right now? I don't think Tommaso's grandma needs to hear why this move's called the Climax. But Just the Tip came from Colt Cabana. I have to give him all the credit there. He came up with Just the Tip, and he asked if because he wanted to say just the tip of the knee. And
it's a wedding crashers joke is where it really began.
Of course. And so like I was like, absolutely. In fact, the name of the move now is Just the Tip. So thank you. You've named it, and I appreciate it.
So there wasn't like, I'm just would be spitballing off the top of my head here. You didn't have something else like, I don't know, the pump and dump or the one night stand or something.
Yeah, I haven't done too many, like the sexual Taven gimmick, which is out. It's floating around because it's only happened a couple of times. I haven't really truly been able to wrestle as that gimmick. It was the gimmick that I was doing when I was hurt last time and trying to stay on shows and stay relevant. So beyond wrestling, thank you. Let me do sexual Taven a couple times there. I'm sure if I was to wrestle under that name more, if you thought the Climax and Just the Tip, that's me like living in a PG world, because Hoopla, our first thing that we did in Ring of Honor, was going to have a lot more risque stuff until Sinclair Broadcasting saw the very first segment and said, "You guys got to relax. You guys got to relax." The very first segment, I pulled a belt out of my pants and it just kind of dangles in front of me. What it was is that, I found that to be very funny, but certain stations around the country thought that was a little absurd, and so they blurred it. But when you saw it blurred out, it looked like it's just me blurred all the way down to my knees. So I need to send a thank you, basket to all those stations. I think in like the Bible Belt in the Midwest that wanted to blur it out because you guys made me look like an absolute champ. And but after that, we were told we had to calm down. So I'm sure that if the situation was a little bit different, those names might have got even a little more risque.
I thought your work with Purple Rain was really brilliant. I thought that you claiming yourself as the real world champion was awesome. Now, what hoops did you have to jump through, or what approval did you have to get to basically be walking around with a belt that you hadn't really won?
So like that's the thing that I have to always give like Ring of Honor the credit for, is they listen and they're so open to ideas. And like what ended up happening was like this thing just kind of all organically happened on its own. So Dalton's hurt. He's supposed to defend the title against me in basically my hometown in Massachusetts. I have like my family in the front row. Unfortunately, he's hurt. He can't wrestle that night. I start saying that Dalton should have forfeited the title to me and I'm the real world champion. Now, after that, since I started saying that, just to put a little more fuel to the fire, I pinned the world champion in the match that Jay Lethal ends up winning the belt, and I pin him for like a 10 count. The ref doesn't see it. Now I'm having this like legit gripe, but at the same time, I also go to Mexico for like a 2-month tour, and I have nothing to do in my hotel room but think about everything that I want to do. And so like, I've pinned the champ. I'm the champ. Like I'm the champ. And so I was like, I'm coming back as the Ring of Honor World Champion, but I can't just say it. I need the belt. And so we have the belt made. The people that are I don't know, are very pay a lot of close attention will realize that belt is not the same belt that ends up getting smashed later. When I showed up back from Mexico and I got the actual belt, it was more of like a pink-ish. And I was like, it's supposed to be purple. All my stuff is purple. So thank God there was another leather maker that got it done correctly the way I wanted it to go. But man, I just saw pictures of it recently, and like the Ring of Honor World Title I think is a great looking belt. And as a guy that has loved wrestling belts and wrestling titles, whatever you want to say, God. Yeah. Forever. I always thought the Ring of Honor one, but man, with that purple background, that title looks pretty sweet. I don't think anyone touches it.
I just think that it's amazing that Ring of Honor was like, yeah, we'll make you your own belt. I think that shows that they, obviously were really invested in this gimmick.
Yeah, I mean, and like they had watched me put so much work into things that I had done with the Kingdom for so long, and there were times where maybe we weren't people. There were so many things going on. We kind of like out of sight, out of mind a little bit. And I would be like, no, absolutely not. Instead, I'm going to rent a van. I'm going to get a megaphone. I'm going to stand outside and act like I'm protesting the show. And so like I think they constantly saw me doing stuff like that they were like, if we go along with it, he has the ideas, or he has at least the motivations to make this work by hook or crook. And, it's another reason why I stay loyal to them and probably always will. I mean, but you can't say that in wrestling, but I hope so.
There's nothing final. There's nothing permanent. Wrestling. Well, I know you're a wrestling historian, wrestling Mark, right? Will you be watching Mania this weekend?
I feel like I almost have to watch it just because it's going to be so weird, right? It's going to be just so different. I unfortunately, and not to I don't know, seem like I'm bragging, I haven't kept up with too much of the stuff, but then now that I have nothing but free time on my hand, I feel like I've caught up with everyone's stuff. Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's ever been a WrestleMania I haven't seen. I don't think there's been many big shows that I haven't seen. So I'm sure I'll find, since I have, such a busy schedule these days, I'm sure I'll find some time to squeeze it in.
I appreciate you squeezing this chat in your crazy busy schedule that you have.
God, right after this, I have to sit on the couch, think about doing some stretching, probably not do it for another hour. It's going to be, I don't know how I'm going to get any of this stuff done.
Well, you got to drink some seltzer water too.
I'm out. I'm all out of.
Oh no!
See, now it's another journey to the fridge. I don't know if I'm gonna have time to do that. It's a busy day. It's a very.
The toughest thing about this quarantine is the unknown of when it's going to end.
Yeah, or like you wake up and you're like, well, if I'm just staying inside all day today, why don't I just do all those things that I'm supposed to do today tomorrow? And then it's just this endless cycle.
Yes.
The other day, I wasn't sure what day it was. I was like, oh, it is. I think I like even tweeted out because I probably should have plugged it by now, but I also do a podcast called Take a Bump. And I'm pretty sure on Monday, I was like, make sure you get your questions in for tomorrow. I was a day off. Not just by complete accident. I did not realize that it was only Monday and not Tuesday. I don't know, man. That it's making all of us lose our minds. So
I've been waking up every day and writing down everything that I had to do that day. Like from the most ridiculous small things like call my mom, like send this email. So then at the end of the day, I can go, look at this list. I did like 17 things today.
Yeah, and I put like a little treat at the end. I'm like, if you get all this stuff done, you could have one bowl of cereal. All right. Well, how about that? You can not diet and have a little bit of cereal and eat by yourself in the darkness like a real sad boy.
What's the go-to cereal though?
Oh, Fruity Pebbles all day. I'm a
Okay.
Pebbles guy forever. And I just saw that they added like you can do Fruity Pebbles with marshmallows. Yeah. So Lucky Charm Fruity Pebbles. I bought it, tried it out. I don't know. I think I would stick with the original if I was having to do it. I said I had one cereal box that I could get on this weeks of quarantine or this week of shopping for quarantine, I should say. And I think I made the wrong decision. But thankfully, I didn't just go crazy and buy every box on the shelf like I wanted to, because it's like, well, if no one's going to see me for a month, why don't I just like cultivate as much mass as humanly possible via cereal that I've missed for my entire life.
Well, I appreciate your time. This has been great, and I don't want to keep you from your seltzer water and your cereal.
Don't do it.
No, it's been such a pleasure talking to you, Matt. I really appreciate the time.
Hey, no, thank you, man. I'm glad that you're safe, and I hope everyone out there watching this, please stay safe. Hopefully this ends sooner than later, and we can have this conversation face to face, person to person next time.
Well, as soon as we get the opportunity, I'm gonna make this happen, and we'll do it in person.
It's a deal.
All right, another virtual interview in the books. A big thank you to Matt Taven for making this happen, and a big thank you to you for finding the time in your super busy day of watching Tiger King on Netflix to spend an hour with us and learn a little bit more about the Ring of Honor World Champion. He was doing such great work in Ring of Honor, and I'm stoked to see him when he can get back into the ring, both from his injury and from this whole quarantine coronavirus thing. I'm just so excited to see what 2020 has in store for Matt Taven. Maybe another Ring of Honor World Championship run, like he said he promised. So I guess we'll see. And I guess we'll see how things go, because we got to keep doing these virtual interviews for, I guess, at least the next month or so. And I appreciate you powering through. We had some audio glitches there and some video glitches that I didn't really realize until we were editing this interview together. But I appreciate you powering through, because that's how things are right now with these virtual interviews. This is why I like doing interviews in person. Not only can you look someone in the eye and shake their hand, but you can also figure out these technical things, as they're happening. But I appreciate you powering through and hanging out with us for the whole time. I've got a bunch more of these virtual interviews lined up, including one with Will Ospreay, which I know is going to be such a great chat. So if you have questions for Will Ospreay, please drop them below. And if you're not subscribed yet, please take a second to subscribe. And, since there's so much free time now with this quarantine, and, you've probably finished Tiger King on Netflix by now, why not binge some old interviews? I will put one right here that I think that you should watch. Oh, that's a good one. That's a good interview. You should watch this one next. If you have some time, you should definitely watch this one.